30 seconds and counting. 25 seconds and counting. We are still go. 20 seconds. Guidance alert. The guidance system now going internal. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. Ignition sequence start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening to Europe and Africa. Good afternoon to most of the Western Hemisphere. Sorry, trying to get words straight in my head this evening. And good, very early morning to my viewers in the Pacific Rim. And welcome to the Angry Astronaut. Bear with me. Just need to pull up the little comments that are coming up this evening, and just trying to get caught up. To be honest, a lot happening right now. Let me tell you. It's a bit insane, everything that's taking place. Boy, over 140 people watching. I really appreciate that. Wasn't sure exactly what kind of audience we would have this evening, given the fact that we got, Vulcan Centaur, ULA, not necessarily the most popular topic with a lot of people, but nevertheless, this is a big, big deal. So where's everybody checking in from out of these 140 people that we have watching? We have Northumberland. Hello. I would love to get back to Northumberland. It's been some time since I've been there. West Palm Beach. Hello. Glad to have you here. 4 Marks. Hello, John. Hope you're doing well. What do we got? Oh, Clifton. Hello, Damien. Hope you're doing well. Lancashire and York, Indianapolis and Delaware. We have Budapest. Hello. And Virginia. H down. We also got Ohio, Fultondale, Alabama. We also have Edinburgh and Lower Alabama, Baltimore, and Milano. Hello. Thank you for joining us. We also have Quebec and Yorkshire. We have Newcastle upon Tyne, and we also have Merritt Island, Netherlands. We also have Nottinghamshire. Hello. And let's see, middle of the Atlantic Ocean via Starlink. Really? Well, glad to have you there. I'm interested. You want a cargo ship or something like that? We have Pittsburgh and Raleigh, North Carolina, New Jersey, München, depending on what part of Germany you're talking about, you're from. North Carolina, Sweden, Dublin, Houston, Texas, Illinois, New Zealand, Oslo, Moonbeam, Ontario, Tim in Norfolk, Tallinn, Estonia. Thanks very much for joining us today. Milton Keynes, thank you so much for joining us today. We got Edinburgh, Vandenberg, and Essex. And Antonym, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Really appreciate it. Brisbane, Bulgaria, Lithuania. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. So really appreciate everybody tuning in today. Once again, welcome to the Angry Astronaut and to this preview of the Vulcan Centaur launch. So I'm sure some of you are probably kind of wondering, or some of you may be aware of everything that's on the Peregrine lander, but I'll tell you, I don't know, certainly not from memory, all of the payloads that are on this damn thing. But it's incredible. And I really think in many cases, a lot of spaceflight journalism, or just the media in general, is not really recognizing how big of a deal this is. The United States has not landed anything at all on the moon since the early 1970s. Since Gene Cernan said goodbye to the moon, that's it. There has been no probes whatsoever. Russia has landed things on the moon more recently, in spite of their recent failure. they've landed things on the moon more recently than the United States has. Chris, thank you so much for the tenor, my friend. I really do appreciate that. So, and of course, obviously, we have India, and obviously, we have China, and we are also most probably, if things go well, we're going to have Japan too. All of these countries that have landed on the moon since the United States did. And the United States has yet to land on the moon. Even though Artemis, we've got this big thing about going back to the moon, and we have the CLPS missions or the CLIPS missions, robots that are supposed to be scouting out the moon first, as being a big part of this whole overall plan of going back to the moon. We have yet to see a single CLIPS mission land on the moon. Instead, what we've had is we've had a long series of other countries landing on the moon and providing us with incredibly useful information about the South Pole of the moon, especially in the case of India. But we've had nothing from the United States until tomorrow. And we're talking hours now. So on this mission, on the Astrobotic Peregrine. The Astrobotic Peregrine lander, by the way, is a unique ship. It's a new concept. The idea is a commercial, just a company, independent company. This is not a NASA mission, to be clear here. I mean, it's a NASA-sponsored mission, but not exclusively NASA at all. So Astrobotic, the company that built Peregrine, this is a lunar taxi. It has some systems of its own, but for the most part, it's designed to carry payloads from other paying customers from all over the world. So that means that you have all of these companies that have put their payloads onto this thing, and all of them have a tremendous amount at stake here, and they can't afford for this to go wrong either. We have, for example, the Colmena from New Mexico, a bunch of tiny little robots that are going to scurry across the lunar surface. We've got that one. We also have the Linear Energy Transfer Spectrometer. That is a NASA payload. It collects information about the lunar radiation environment. So that's of course very important. We need to know as much as we can about the radiation levels that astronauts are going to be facing there. We have DHL Moonbox Germany. By the way, I'm going to go through all of these, so this could take a little while because there's a lot of them, but I want to make sure that I recognize all of these companies. Mementos to the Moon, DHL Moonbox, and that is personal mementos from around the world being stored on this payload that are being delivered to the moon. It's a German company called DHL Moonbox. Then we also have Spacebit. Originally, Spacebit was supposed to put the first robots, the first UK mission to the moon. However, they couldn't get their robots ready in time. So they are sending a plaque that's been signed by their employees saying, hey, we are going to be sending our robots. We just can't send them on this mission. So that's what they're sending. We also have the IRIS lunar rover from Carnegie Mellon University. This is the first rover ever independently built by students that are going to the moon to explore the lunar surface. That also is a first. So super important to these students from Carnegie Mellon University. Then we have the Near Infrared Volatile Spectrometer System, or the NIRVS. And that is a NASA payload, and it measures subsurface hydration, carbon dioxide, and methane. Are you listening, Elon? It's a probe actually designed to look for methane beneath the surface of the moon. So if there turns out to be deposits of methane that we didn't know about, that could be super useful to Starship. Then we have the Memory of Mankind on the Moon from a company called Bully Space Technologies from Hungary. And let me make sure about this. It's a plaque containing archival imagery and texts from contributors around the world. So once again, some of these just kind of symbolic things that these companies or these organizations would like to put on the moon, remembrances that will last a very long time. If no meteor hits it or something in the future, then this is going to be here for a hell of a long time. You have the neutron spectrometer system. This is a NASA payload. Also, looking for indications of water ice near the lunar surface. You also have the Lunar Dream capsule from Astroscale. Astroscale, for those of you may recognize that name, they are also embarking on low Earth orbit cleanup. They're heavily engaged in that. The UK Space Agency has commissioned them to do an experiment to get rid of some space junk to see if they can do it, and then hopefully upgrade that in the future. The Dream capsule contains messages from children from around the world. That's a Japanese company once again, Astroscale. Then we have the M42 radiation detector from the Germans, the German Aerospace Center. And again, measuring key radiation data on the flight to the moon and also on the lunar surface. Radiation, super important things that we need to know a lot about. So we got that on there. You also have the Peregrine Ion Trap Mass Spectrometer. And this is a variety of different organizations who contributed to that. It characterizes the lunar exosphere. So we're talking a tiny bit of material that exists that can't really qualify as an atmosphere. But that was called an exosphere after descent and landing, and throughout the lunar day to understand the release and movement of volatiles. Then you have the Moon Arc, another Carnegie Mellon University contribution. And keep in mind, Astrobotic is based in Pittsburgh, where there is a huge space industry taking off. Need to be clear about that. Pittsburgh, after a lot of the industry went away, a lot of the steel, that sort of thing, one of their plans was to make Pittsburgh a nerve center for space industry, and they have been very successful in accomplishing that. So that's a collaborative project that embodies the arts, humanities, sciences, and technologies in a set of intricately designed objects designed to spark wonderment and discovery for future generations. So that's on its way to the moon as well. You have the ARC libraries from the ARC Mission Foundation. That's a United States payload, designs, builds, delivers, and maintains curated long-term archives that are housed in specially designed devices called ARC libraries. So essentially information, knowledge, and knowledge being placed on the moon, which is going to last for a very long period of time. So that if, God forbid, anything happens to human civilization, you have a tremendous amount of knowledge being preserved on the moon. Then you have the Laser Retro Reflector Array from NASA. And that is designed to use laser light from Earth to precisely determine the location of the peregrine. So it's a different type of navigational system. Then you have the Terrain Relative Navigation System. That is actually Astrobotic's device. They built that. And they're demonstrating the Terrain Relative Navigation Sensor as a payload on the first mission to the moon. It will enable a spacecraft to perform landings on a planetary surface with an accuracy of less than 100 meters. That is huge amounts of precision to land on the surface of an alien world to a distance of less than 100 meters. That's a tough thing to do, and they're going to be testing that as well. You have the Navigation Doppler LiDAR system from NASA. A lot of us are familiar with LiDAR and what it's used for. Laser scanning systems essentially designed for a safe landing. A lot of payloads here, huh? I mean, tons of them. Then we have the Elysium Memorial Space Flight Services, and that a lot of you have probably heard a lot about this, and that is a symbolic portion of the remains of a number of hundreds of people actually are being sent to the moon. So the ashes of people's loved ones, including some Star Trek celebrities apparently, are on their way to the moon. This has triggered an angry reaction from the Navajo Nation, who feel that we are desecrating the moon by sending remains to the moon. And they actually put in a demand or request to NASA to delay the launch until their objections can be considered. NASA responded and said, "This ain't our mission, guys. It's not our rocket. It's not our lander. Therefore, we have no authority to say no." So there's absolutely nothing anybody can do at this point. This mission is going forward. We have the Memorial Space Flight from Celestis, USA, and apparently selected by NASA to honor one of its scientists. More than 2 decades. Again, a symbolic payload, I guess would be the best way to describe that. You have the lunar Bitcoin from BitMEX, and that is a coin going to the moon, loaded. It's got 1 Bitcoin on it. So they're sending a Bitcoin to the moon for some reason. Then you have oh, okay, let me put some. I got a fantastic producer here, another space nut man. He's so helpful to me in Yorkshire, by the way, is where he's at. He just told me what this thing is for. The idea is whoever can get to this thing, whoever can retrieve this Bitcoin in the future, can keep it. So it's designed to inspire people to want to go and to go to the moon. So they're going to set up a little treasure hunt to inspire people to go to retrieve it in the future. That's pretty cool. I like that. You also have Footsteps on the Moon. We're almost done here, but you see how many payloads we're talking about here. Footsteps on the Moon, Lunar Mission 1. This is a British endeavor. So there's actually a number of British payloads on here. This gives everyone the chance to make their mark on the moon, sending the first digital storage payload to the moon, submissions of footprints from all over the world. So once again, kind of a symbolic payload. And then you have the Bitcoin Magazine Genesis plate. This includes a copy of the Genesis block, the first block of Bitcoin to be mined, the cornerstone of the Bitcoin network, providing the foundation for an ecosystem that would challenge our perception of how money is valued, et cetera, et cetera. So you've got all kinds of different payloads, from incredibly important scientific payloads to a variety of payloads that are simply, symbolic in nature for the most part. So think about this for a moment. Look at all of these companies, all of these organizations. Oh, yeah, we also want to remember one more that isn't even listed here. Astro Liz, a young lady, young girl who lives in the United Kingdom, in Leicester, actually, in the UK. And she has her payload on board as well. And as I recall, once again, please clarify this for me, producer. It's just a model of the Vulcan Centaur, isn't it, that she's sending, or is it something else? A sticker pack, right? Okay, there's a sticker pack that she's sending, but it's the first time that a child has had a payload go to the moon. So a wonderful moment for her as well. She is personally at Cape Canaveral right now, waiting to see this launch. I wish to hell I was there with her, but for those of you who keep up with my channel, you will know that NASA once again denied my request for accredited press status, which means that I was going to be watching this launch from a million miles away. And it was just going to be insane trying to do it, because my son has been here until today. I dropped him off at Heathrow just today, which means I would have had to have jumped on a plane too, landed in Orlando, gotten in a car, driven straight to Cape Canaveral and set up my camera and filmed the launch. I mean, if anything had gone wrong at all, I would have missed the whole damn thing. It was just beyond difficult trying to get it set up. If I had had accredited press status, I would have done it, but it just wasn't worth it. And what would be better, I think, for the support that I got from you guys to go, is to use that support for OFT3. I think OFT3 is going to be a much more impressive thing to see in person than this launch from ULA. So, Michael, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Finding the Bitcoin on the moon has become a lunar scavenger hunt for the first human arrivals, lunar workers, colonists to get the mark on. Yep, that's true. And it's going to be kind of unique too, because uniquely difficult, because this probe is not going to the south pole of the moon. So it's going to be tough to even get there. Math, thank you so much for the $2. We're officially down minus 12 hours. Yeah. This is getting close, and I cannot begin to describe the level of tension that I'm feeling right now, guys. And if I'm feeling this level of tension, I can't begin to think about how bad it is for people like Tory Bruno and every single man and woman at ULA, because everything rides on this launch. Everything. ULA has fallen so far behind in terms of launch cadence, in terms of contracts. There are so many opportunities that they have lost because they have not been able to get this rocket into service. That has encountered so many issues, from the Centaur 5 anomaly to the BE4 engines and all the BS associated with those. So many problems associated with the development of this rocket. It's really put ULA behind the 8 ball. And what they've got now is a situation where, if they are successful, if this mission turns out to be a huge, unqualified success, they have billions of dollars of business lined up between the military and the all of the Amazon launches. They are carrying more Amazon satellites, more of the Kuiper constellation to orbit than any other launch provider. More than Blue Origin, more than Arianespace, more than SpaceX. SpaceX only has 3 launches secured. And honestly, the only reason that they gave them those 3 launches was to shut down the lawsuit that they were getting hit with from some of their shareholders. Because, I mean, honestly, come on, Jeff doesn't want to do business with SpaceX. Get real. So in any event, there's a huge amount of business here ready to go with ULA. And they've signed so many agreements with so many companies who are looking forward to the promise of Vulcan Centaur. However, if this experiences an anomaly at this crucial stage, loses the Astrobotic Peregrine and all those payloads on board, if that happens, I don't see ULA ever recovering from that. I think it will be close to a death blow. And their efforts of getting bought out right now, whoever's placing bids on them and such, I don't see anybody bidding anything on ULA if there's an anomaly on this. ULA will not be sold to anybody if this rocket explodes, or if this rocket's second stage doesn't light, or something goes wrong with it. ULA will instead be in a death spiral. And that is something that I certainly don't want to see. I don't think any space flight enthusiast wants to see that happen to ULA. Ross, thank you so much. Really do appreciate the $2. You're welcome for the detailed payloads coverage. I think that I haven't seen a whole lot of spaceflight media people really thoroughly covering all of the different companies that are riding on this rocket. And I think it's very important that we do that. It's super important for everybody to understand just how much is riding on this, how many different companies, including children, including Astro Liz and her payload. She wants to see it get to the moon. She doesn't want to see it go up in flames. So, come on. There is just so much at stake here. So if ULA is successful tonight, whichever we want to see it, it will be early morning Eastern Standard Time, late evening on the West Coast. Then ULA, I think, has a potentially bright future. Although they really can't afford to have an anomaly on the second launch either, because the second launch is what? It's Dream Chaser, Sierra Space, an incredibly important payload, arguably more important than this one, because it's worth more in terms of money, in terms of the time and engineering and effort that was invested in getting this payload and getting Dream Chaser ready to go. My God, we are talking about an enormously valuable payload here. Critically important that really both of these launches go well. The first 2 launches of Vulcan Centaur. Once again, is this the way that ULA would want to do it ideally? Hell no, absolutely not. This is not just a modified Atlas or something like that. This is a very new rocket, a rocket that has brand new engines on the first stage. And not only that, newer upgraded versions of the RL-10 from Aerojet Rocketdyne on the second stage that provide additional thrust. A lot of additional thrust, actually. So there is a hell of a lot of just basic upgrades to the propulsion system, to the avionics, to the computers, so much on this rocket, all of which are brand new. Now, unlike Starship, we're talking about all of these systems having been thoroughly tested to failure, every last component thoroughly tested to failure, which is something SpaceX generally doesn't do in order to increase the speed of development. But does that mean it's going to succeed on the first launch? Well, it did for SLS, but that doesn't mean it's going to do it for this one, because obviously the Japanese, with the H3, that was the same kind of concept, and it failed disastrously. Michael Maxey says, recent issue about Boeing 737 MAX 9 at ULA, Tory Bruno, definitely looking to sever ties with Boeing. Michael, I agree completely. Boeing has put themselves in a world of hurt right now in terms of their reputation. A company that used to have the most reliable, solid, fantastic aircraft that you could imagine, and really some of the most fantastic things in space that you could imagine too. And now we've have, their windows are falling off, at high immediately after takeoff. Just one of a long series of problems with the 737 Max. Putting lives in very serious jeopardy, and in some cases leading to the deaths of passengers. Boeing has lost their reputation. Now they have a rather infamous reputation. Who would have guessed, right? I certainly wouldn't have guessed when I was a kid that would ever happen to Boeing, but it most definitely has. And by the way, if we want to talk about big things coming up with Boeing where they really can't afford to have failure, you've got the Starliner, and the Starliner will be carrying people on board this time. 2 astronauts on Starliner are going to put their lives on the line on this spacecraft that have had so many problems, and they are going to be writing it up. More power to them, I'll tell you. That's what NASA astronauts are all about. We're talking about very little fear of death. That's the only thing I can be thinking of, because given all the issues that spacecraft has had, all I can think of is that they can't have a whole lot of fear of death if they are eager to go up on this thing. DHL isn't actually German. It was founded in San Francisco and then later bought by the Deutsche Post. How about that? Okay. Hey, I appreciate that, Black Eagle. Really appreciate you making that. Boeing is going to drive everybody over to Airbus, and that isn't good. Yeah, Airbus definitely has their problems. Airbus, however, doing a pretty good job in the space industry recently. The European service module on the Orion capsule, for those of you who don't know, that is an Airbus product, and it seems really good. It performed admirably, perfectly, really, during the flight of Orion. The service module did very well. And also, that's one of the very few components of SLS that actually came in at budget. It came in costing exactly the amount of money that Airbus said it was going to cost. Yeah, now that's a rare thing on SLS. So I have to admit, we got to give Airbus some props for that one. And of course, they also have a huge new space station module coming out real soon. Airbus, that's exciting, as part of the Starlab space station, one of the several space stations that will be succeeding the ISS. So Airbus definitely getting in on the bleeding edge of spaceflight in the 21st century. That's super exciting stuff indeed. Die in the name of space exploration and expansion, no questions asked. I'll tell you, I don't disagree with you in that regard. The only problem that I have is people who are giving their lives needlessly, who are giving their lives when they don't have to. because we already have a very good low Earth orbit human rated spacecraft, and that's Crew Dragon. And if Starliner seems still a shaky product, if it still seems like it's unsafe or even remotely unsafe, I don't think it's worth it to have a second human rated spacecraft, to risk people's lives just for that. I think it would be better to just wait for a human rated Dream Chaser to come out rather than risk the lives of these people, on an unnecessary space flight. We don't need Starliner to support human activities, at the ISS. Now, once again, though, if something were to go horribly wrong with Crew Dragon in the future, they have some sort of cataclysmic disaster or something, then yeah, we're going to be damn glad that we have Starliner. But then again, I'll tell you, what are my chances of the tattoo? Well, Math Wiz, I put it at 10%. I'm giving ULA a 90% chance of success on this mission. I think that ULA, they are a solid operation. They are top of the line when we're talking about reliability, even with new products. Because when they transitioned from the Atlas 3 to the Atlas 5, they didn't lose any missions whatsoever. Perfect operational record with that transition. So that being the case, I think, once again, I think that the transition from Atlas 5 to Vulcan will just go just as smoothly. But then again, who knows? Michael, thank you so much for the $10. Bill Nelson just announced early morning a cooperation between NASA and the United Arab Emirates to develop a docking port for the Lunar Gateway. That is a great piece of news. Thrilled to hear it, because that was originally a responsibility for Roscosmos. That's something that they were supposed to take care of. However, as we know, our relationship with the Russians is essentially disintegrated. So now that the UAE are willing to build this docking port airlock for the Lunar Gateway, that's great news. And it's fantastic also to get the Middle East engaged in the space industry. That is very important. I think that we engage all regions of the world in all of this new. Let's see. Conjugate. So yeah, so in terms to answer the question, I'd say I have about a 10% chance, I think, of getting that tattoo. I think overall ULA stands a really good chance. And just to be clear, here's how ULA wins this race, that this little competition that I set up a couple of years ago here. Well, it wasn't 2 years ago, but it was a while ago. ULA needs to successfully deliver Peregrine to the appropriate trajectory to get it to the moon. If Astrobotic fails to land on the moon, that's not ULA's responsibility. They just have to get Peregrine to the moon. As long as Vulcan Centaur does all of that, then they win the race. So that's the deal. And, on the other side of the equation, Starship doesn't have to land at the end of its orbital trajectory. It just has to attempt a re-entry. Kind of the same situation. Starship gets the orbiter to the appropriate place in the atmosphere where it attempts a re-entry, attempts to come down somewhere in the rough vicinity of Hawaii. That's good enough too. So, kind of apples to apples comparison here. And we'll see what happens. I'll tell you, I am beyond excited. I, of course, wish ULA and Astrobotic all the luck in the world. I certainly hope that this mission works out for them. I really do. I so wish I could have been there in person. I feel a huge amount of regret about that. But at the same time, I really don't think that I would have been able to bring you anything close to the quality that you deserve. Especially all this effort I've put into actually getting new equipment and such to try to provide a better launch time experience for you guys. To have gotten into Orlando, hightailing it to Cape Canaveral, and trying to get set up at the, in the dead of night, I really think that there would have been a very good chance that would have just all gone to hell. And I don't want to do that. What I want to do instead is bring you a good experience for OFT3. Tomorrow, I'll bring you a good experience in terms of a remote coverage of this launch. And also, I'm going to be there for the launch of Dream Chaser. And I am super, super excited about that. So looking forward to all the exciting stuff coming up soon here on The Angry Astronaut. Thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And also, if you want to support this channel, want to appreciate everybody who has done that in this broadcast, you can also go to the description. Many ways to support me there and to become part of our Discord community. So until Vulcan Centaur rockets towards success tomorrow, I urge all of you to stay angry about space.